Good morning, everyone. And welcome to the Republic Bank webinar, Succeeding in the Low-Touch Economy. I'm your host, Brevard Nelson, and today we have a lot of information to share with you, advice, SME stories, etc. We know folks are already in, but for those who are not, come in. We still have some seats up in front, so come on in. So this webinar is the second in the series of SME-focused conversations, helping you, business owners, with tips, insights, and best practices to help your business to succeed in this new low-touch economy. The first webinar focused on getting you going in with e-commerce. Today, of course, we're going to focus on the critical success factors for surviving. COVID-19 has been almost like a big red reset button, forcing everyone, and especially business owners, to rethink their strategy, their operating models, their systems, etc. And in order to not just survive, but to thrive in this new environment, we need to rethink our operations, rethink our strategy and business. Over the last few months, the world has had to adapt significantly, from social distancing restrictions to accelerated digital transformation. We now face a new low-touch reality. In today's webinar, you'll hear from a diverse group of leaders who will share some insights that will be immensely beneficial to you, the business owners, at this critical time. I'll get to my panelists in a second because they have a lot of information to share with you, lots of insights and stories. But just touching on the topic, like, what is this new low-touch economy really? And to be honest, is it really new, right? The new low-touch economy refers to the current and post-COVID-19 economy that has more or less been shaped by new habits, new regulations based on reduced close contact interaction, limited gatherings, and of course, no travel and lots of hygiene restrictions. COVID-19 has already disrupted how we eat, how we work, how we shop, exercise, manage our health, socialize, spend our free time, consume media and other content, supply chains, etc. Everything. And we have medical experts who've told us that a vaccine is 12 to 18 months away at best. So the impact is not just for 2020, it's actually 2020 and far beyond. So the bottom line is that the businesses that survive this COVID-19 pandemic will be those that rely on business models tailored to this new normal, while maintaining a low-touch or even contactless model. The agile businesses that can adopt new structures and adapt quickly are the ones that are most likely to succeed. Now, it's easy to talk about adapting, but sometimes knowing how and when to take action is difficult. But Republic Bank understood that. And that is why we're here today with our panel to help. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you our panel for today. I'll start with Lorianne Ainsworth.
Hi, Rivard. Hi, everyone. So happy to be here. Thank you, Republic Bank, for putting this on. It's a well-needed topic, I think. We have lots to talk about, but yes, I'm Lorianne from the Branson Center. We're headquartered here in Jamaica. We serve entrepreneurs across the region, and I can't wait to share some of what we have been doing, how we've pivoted, how we are supporting entrepreneurs at this time.
Now, let me tell you a little bit about L'Oreal, right? She's not going to tell you. I'll tell you Lorianne, CEO of Branson Center of Entrepreneurship Caribbean, which is the region's leading accelerator for Caribbean entrepreneurs. She's a mom of two, an entrepreneur and wellness advocate, an entrepreneur herself. Lorianne brings 14 years of people leadership, marketing, and project management experience to this virtual panel. And she will give us a regional perspective of what is happening with SMEs and sharing her advice. Next, on our panel, we have Jules Sobian. The Sobian bloodline of visionaries courses through the veins of this Commander-in-Chief, General Jules Sobian, founder of Caesars Army Limited, an event management production company. Jules has extensive experience in the entertainment industry locally, regionally, and globally, and exemplifies what it means to embrace challenges and changes in order to disrupt the market and to create a need that didn't exist before. So today we'll be hearing more about his story and some of his lessons. We also have Karen Rose, owner and tech blogger behind the brand Droid Island. And he teaches Caribbean entrepreneurs just like you, business owners just like you, who more or less teaches them how to build their presence online and how do you transition components of your business, your existing business, online. So he's also the host of an online show, The Digital Age, that was recently launched, which hosts industry experts that share their knowledge on the platform. So today he will also share with you some tips, tools, platforms, software, etc., that will help you as business owners build your business. And of course, we will have Gavin Jofield, economist, manager of Republic Bank's Economic Intelligence Unit. He has a wealth of experience in various aspects of banking. Of course, he's been with Republic Bank for 20 years. And Gavin is going to also share his knowledge on the economic landscape and the impact, especially on SMEs. And of course, since you'll be representing Republic Bank, you will also touch on some of the avenues for financing, the SME stimulus plan, and so on and so on. So if you have your questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. All right. So with that intro of our panelists, we're going to get into some discussion, right? At the start, I kind of gave some context for, COVID-19, the period that we're in, and, what has been happening over the last couple months that we've been going through, the world has been going through. So where I'd like to start is I want our panelists each to just paint the picture for our viewers, our SME owners and business owners of, of course, the economic landscape. Gavin will chime in on that in a bit, but more so, regional entrepreneurs. I'll start with you, Lorianne. How have regional entrepreneurs and SMEs been impacted by COVID-19?
Yeah, great place to start. And I think I want to start by saying, we are no different anywhere around the world, I believe. Certainly as a region, everyone is being impacted in the same way. And we have entrepreneurs across the region, Trinidad, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Belize, many different countries, Barbados, and they're all experiencing the same thing, which is loss of income, loss of revenue, having to rationalize their business, their team, whether it's through layoffs, whether it is through reducing their team complement. Many people are losing clients right now because of what's happening. And I think that's a reality of what's happening to a lot of entrepreneurs in the space. It doesn't matter where you are in the region. And it is forcing entrepreneurs to really take a look at their business and say, is this viable anymore? Some businesses have closed down already. When this thing started, it came to the region, I believe, in March, right? Or late February. But in March, when we started to close down and, we got stay-at-home orders in our various countries, we thought it would be a 2-week thing, go home for 2 weeks and things will come back. That didn't happen. And I think everyone around the region was in a little bit of shock, what is actually happening here. So we were in a little bit of a wait and see. And admittedly, so we too were like, okay, this will blow off. But the reality of what happened is that we saw a huge decline in the economy very quickly. And it meant entrepreneurs were no longer accelerating. And that's what we are in the business of. We're in the business of accelerating the growth of entrepreneurs who are ready to scale their businesses. And so what happened was entrepreneurs needed to get back almost to the foundation. It's no longer business as usual. It is, how do I survive at this point? And that is the reality of what happened to the entrepreneurs. And I mean, I can get into how we started to support, but I'll open it up to the other panelists.
Yes, no, that's good. And it's good to know that, granted that yes, misery loves company, but the reality is that this is something that everybody has had to go through. So you're not alone. You're not going through this challenge by yourself. In some instances, you don't need to reinvent the wheel because there are some elements that have been tried and tested and done before. So it's always good to hear the stories of other entrepreneurs and come together and actually, maybe even share some of the best practices and some of the stuff that we're going to be sharing today. So that's good, Laurie, and thank you so much for that. And of course, Gavin, as an economist and of course, working in a financial institution, I think it might be useful for us to get a picture from you on the economic landscape, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but obviously regional, because we have participants from the region. But we're just understanding what is the economic landscape for business owners, for SMEs, and what are they facing in today's market, particularly as a result of COVID-19.
Yeah, sure. Good. Thanks, Brevard, for the opportunity to share some thoughts. And good morning to everyone. Sorry for my late attendance. I had some technical issues. To be honest, the global economy was facing severe challenges even before the emergence of COVID-19. I just threw your mind back, for example, to the issues presented by the US-China trade dispute, uncertainty surrounding Brexit, and low energy prices and what they did for supplier countries. What COVID-19 did is that it intensified some of these challenges and it brought new, severe, unprecedented challenges of its own. So, for example, the restrictions that were imposed to restrict the spread of the virus resulted in a disruption in global supply chains. It suppressed economic activity in most sectors. I don't know of any sector that was really unscathed by the restrictions. Travel and tourism, for example, was brought to a virtual standstill. The energy sector was significantly impacted, with demand and prices plummeting. At one point in April, oil futures were in negative territory. That's unprecedented. So the COVID-19 virus had a significant impact on the global economy. So much so that the IMF now projects the global economy to contract by 4.9%, which is the largest contraction since the Great Depression. And the contraction is expected to be felt in both advanced and developing countries. Just to highlight three jurisdictions, the US, the UK, and the Euro area. I identified three of them because they are the three main source markets for the Caribbean for tourism, they are expected to register significant declines between 8 and 10% of GDP, contraction in GDP this year. So it's against that setting that the Caribbean is facing a significant challenge of its own. First of all, the demand for tourism from source markets is significantly below anything we've ever experienced before, and those who would want to come are grounded by the challenges with air travel and stuff as it is now. So is against that backdrop that the IMF has projected the Caribbean economy to contract by 6.2%, which is the largest contraction the region has faced for more than 60 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
If you pull out, with the exception of Guyana, who is a country that is benefiting from its first full year of oil production, all the other territories in the Caribbean would be facing major contraction in economic activity this year. The tourist-dependent countries alike and the commodity producers. In addition to the blow provided by the contraction in the tourism sector, the Caribbean is also facing a major fall off in remittances. Remittances account for about 7% of GDP on an annual basis.
Yeah.
In some jurisdictions, it could be as high as 15%. So given that double whammy, the region is in for a very tough time. In Trinidad and Tobago, without even touching on the challenges of the energy sector, just knowing the impact of weakened tourism sector on CARICOM, which is Trinidad and Tobago's major market for manufactured exports. Our manufacturers are likely to face a major fall in demand for their products this year and probably heading into 2021 as well. So Trinidad and Tobago is facing a situation where both its energy sector and its non-energy sector would face major contractions this year. In fact, the IMF projects Trinidad GDP to contract by Trinidad and Tobago's GDP to contract by 4.5% this year. And these are very, very early projections. Things could be worse.
Yeah.
We still in a situation, for example, where we have jurisdictions around the world thinking, and some of them taking steps to roll back some of the restrictions and having to halt it because the virus has been spreading faster than they anticipating. Even this, I read in the newspaper this morning, Grenada was supposed to relax some of its restrictions, and it has pushed that back.
Yeah.
So the virus is inflicting a whole host of uncertainties that nobody is prepared for. Projecting now is very difficult. The IMF of itself has shortened its projecting timeline. The IMF is not projecting anything beyond 2023, 2022, sorry.
Right.
That's to highlight how uncertain the environment is. So against the setting, conducting business activity, businesses in the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago would face a very, very difficult time. The challenges would be all the more acute for the SME sector, unfortunately. And the unfortunate reality is for many SMEs, the second half of this year would be more about survival than growing profits or anything like that. And it's just an unfortunate reality. But I don't want to end my initial comments on such a negative note.
No. I mean,
the reality.
But what I was going to say is that actually the reality, even as an entrepreneur and a business owner myself, these are the times when entrepreneurs actually step in and innovate and thrive and actually now come out of what might be perceived as doom and gloom to now, a thriving business going forward, right? So,
And that is one of the points I was going to make.
Yeah.
Crisis is never alone. Crisis is always accompanied by opportunity.
Yeah.
The opportunity to innovate sometimes, simply sometimes the opportunity to be more efficient. So when the economy returns to growth, the efficient firms will benefit much more than firms that are not efficient.
Absolutely.
And just to provide early encouragement, firms like Hyatt Hotels, Disney, General Motors, General Electric, they have two things in common. Is that they are internationally recognized brands. And the second thing is that they all started during a recession, and some of them during the Great Depression. So it's not impossible.
See,
There's
there
hope.
you go. There you
Yeah.
go. That's the signal. That's the solution. And I'll
Yeah.
take this opportunity also to segue to Jules, because as commander in chief of Sales Army, but also entrepreneur, visionary yourself, you would have to actually think about and continue to reimagine and rethink your business strategy and how you need to pivot in these times. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about, the impact for you, obviously coming out of what would have been a Trinidad and Tobago Carnival and what would have been expected to be a bumper 2020 calendar of activities throughout the entire region and the world. Tell us a little bit about that and, how you have been trying to pivot and thinking about your business.
Well, I have to give thanks for TNT Carnival 2020 even taking place, because that seems like it was the last carnival for 2020.
Yep.
So I have to give thanks for that, But in respect to the pandemic, I mean, I have 4 brands or companies that are centered around Caribbean culture and Caribbean identity. And I thrive on the Caribbean community, whether it be a local community or a diaspora. So for me in particular, I will highlight 2 because they represent the industry. Caesar's Army is an experiential event company, and we curate experiences that take the form of festivals and events, which is not only done in TNT, but it's done in Barbados, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Bermuda, Bahamas, Miami, and New York. And you can see how that has impacted Caesar's Army's year. Basically, we have no events that are taking place after TNT. So that is a reason enough for us to pivot and innovate in respect to the field of events and festivals. And then you look at a band, Carnival, which is Rogue, the mass band. Again, giving thanks for TNT Carnival. That was the last mass performance that we had for 2020. That was the last interaction with a global and international community for the mass band itself. So indeed, in terms of when you look at mass/carnival, as well as the events, it has basically impacted those 2 companies instrumentally. So there's not just a need for my companies to pivot and innovate. What is also important, especially when you look at the entertainment and the carnival industry, it's a very multifaceted ecosystem, a very diverse one. I mean, when you look at it, encompasses professions and services such as artists and DJs, food and beverage suppliers, infrastructure suppliers, carnival designers, local craftsmen, artisans, hotels, etc. It's even comparable if you understand that I am affected with my events. There are carnival designers that are hired for carnivals throughout the year. There are artists and DJs who export their craft and skill throughout the. Basically, it's a standstill now, given the pandemic. So I'm not looking at just pivoting and adapting for myself. You're also looking for innovation and reinvention that is going to benefit the entire ecosystem in terms of how they think for the industry itself. But personally, I mean, I had my struggles would have been a complete loss of revenue. The pandemic brought a halt to all economic activity. There's no real restart date. So basically all planning is hindered. For mass bands in particular, you'd realize that our supply chain has been disrupted. Remember, we have a real dependency on the States, the US, and China. So maybe we have to start thinking about local production and making production exist locally. And there's now a struggle determining and defining what needs to be put in place for events and carnival now. The new policies and guidelines based on the after effects of this pandemic, the new measures for social distancing, the new measures for large gatherings. Are people even able to attend large gatherings based on the new economic situation post-COVID? Are people even comfortable to attend large gatherings, hence the new low-touch economy? So there are a number of things, and as Gavin said, I don't want to really bring gloom, but ideally, I think this is a time for metamorphosis and re-evaluation of your skill set. Yeah?
I like that word, metamorphosis, because really, it really takes a transformation from, your pre-COVID state, because we use COVID almost as a milestone now, pre-COVID and post-COVID, right? So it requires a transformation from pre-COVID state to post-COVID state, and for you to survive. So that's a good one. And I'll take it now to Karen, because obviously you've been working with entrepreneurs, business owners, etc., over the last few months, and you've been getting a sense of some of the things that they're worried about, that they're trying to learn, that they're trying to ramp up and upskill on. Tell us some of the things that like entrepreneurs have been hitting you up for to learn, to just basically ramp up on. Muted, not hearing you.
You hearing me now?
Yep, hearing you now.
Perfect. All right. So I want to start by saying, never waste a good crisis. For sure. That is something for all of us to keep in mind. And this is being looked at by many people as the Great Reset. There was a lot of things in the old system that simply wasn't working. And there is now a ton of opportunities to now people to step up and fill some gaps that have now been created. Within the digital space, I think the silver lining and the blessing in disguise that COVID has done is COVID has forced the digital transformation in the Caribbean that was probably not really going to happen or happen at a snail's pace over the next couple of years. You have people who, they would argue they don't need to build an online presence. They're good with having a shop in a heavily trafficked area, and they were perfectly fine with that. COVID hits, and now it's like, how do I get online, and how do I now go beyond a radius from where my business was? So businesses are now finally not just paying lip service to trying to be to get online, to start to e-commerce, to start doing digital marketing and start actually tracking the leads that come in through your marketing campaigns now. They're actually putting things in place and actually willing to make that investment because now they don't have a choice.
Yeah.
They don't have a choice but to do it now. With entrepreneurs, one of the things that's popping up a lot now is everybody wants to learn digital skills. So you're seeing more people are willing to now say, you know what, now is a good time to start learning a high income skill like web development, a high income skill like a search engine optimization expert. You're seeing more people willing to now invest into programs that are going to learn these skills and start thinking beyond Trinidad borders, because the one thing that the digital world allows you to do is go beyond your borders. You are no longer limited to your country. You can access anybody in any country, provide a service or sell a digital product or sell a digital course anywhere across the globe. So COVID hit, and there were tons of businesses. Obviously, we got the whole rundown. We got the whole rundown as to all the sectors that have come to a complete halt. But there was also a lot of entrepreneurs where they tripled their money during this time period because their business was set up as a digital business. So it's not that it can't be done. Like Jeff Bezos and Mark and Zuckerberg weren't the only people that made money. There were micro entrepreneurs that made money because they had a skill. For me, my pivot happened where at the ending of last year, one of the things I was doing more in-person workshops to teach people online skills. So we meet in person, we have in-person workshops, so we can start to bring them online, because in the Caribbean, in order to build that trust, we need to see you, hug you, touch you, smell you before we trust you, right? So my plan was, I was doing all these in-person workshops to start to bring them online. And COVID hit, you can no longer do that. All those plans that I had in place all went to the wayside. But now all of a sudden, whereas those same people who I could never get on a Zoom call, they were never going to figure out how to jump into a webinar. All of a sudden, everybody is, hey, can we do classes on Zoom? Yeah, so it happened just like that. So COVID has forced the digital transformation that is very much needed. All of a sudden, the word e-commerce is no longer this mystified term. People are now trying to understand what it is and get their business e-commerce ready. Even if you're a service-based business, people are now looking at, how do I send digital invoices? We all of a sudden want to understand how important having the new linked Visa debit cards, so that everybody can now pay you online. And if you're outside of Trinidad, you would have already had your Visa debit cards and making purchases online. So we're now starting to understand the importance of the payment mechanisms, the payment processors, and also having our business e-commerce ready, so that, God forbid, if the second wave hits, we can still conduct business. Again, many of us, COVID happened, we got busier.
Yeah.
So it can definitely happen for businesses. And again, now is the time to start thinking digital, whether it's going to be digital skills. If you're an entrepreneur, maybe you were doing arts and crafts before and it wasn't making sense because you're trying to build a product yourself. And now you might shift to start doing e-classes, to teaching people how to, you lead an e-class and you teach people how to build that. And now you're tapping into a global industry and a global economy. So there's a lot of things that can happen. People, entrepreneurs and businesses just need to start thinking digital first. And whatever you were doing as a physical business, what aspects of it can we start doing as a digital business? And we can now finally start to scale those digital products and services.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you made a good point in the sense that a lot of the technology existed like years ago, like
years.
And all of these solutions have existed for decades. And the reality is that again, COVID-19, never wasted a crisis. COVID-19 has been a catalyst for that change. There are a lot of businesses that had some change on their roadmap, but as a result of COVID-19, it was accelerated, and they did it in a couple of weeks or months versus years. So I think that's the positive coming out of it. And what we need to ensure that we're doing is arming ourselves with the knowledge, with the tools, and ensuring, as you said, God forbid if there's a second wave or if there is another crisis, right? Because just underscore that this is a pandemic, this is a crisis, but rewind 10 years ago, we had the global financial crisis, so we don't know what other type of crisis may exist ahead of us. And so therefore we need to be agile enough to be able to continue business to survive. That's the reality. Yeah. So against this backdrop, I do want to get into some advice, some real tangible advice for our attendees, just looking at, regional entrepreneurs, business owners, just navigating through these times. And I'll start with Lorianne, but of course, all of the panelists can easily weigh in on different points. So, what changes can, business owners, particularly when it comes to like strategy? I mean, at the Branson Center, you guys think about the whole entrepreneur, right? Not just the business itself. So what sort of advice would you give to an entrepreneur and business owner at this point?
Yeah, great question. I mean, that's a loaded question too. There's just so much that needs to happen at this point, right?
Yeah.
And everyone else that's listening to what you're saying, absolutely correct. Jules, having to revamp and just innovate during this time, and Karen, absolutely with the digital perspective. And when this hit, our entrepreneurs, the first thing they were asking for is digital marketing. How do I market in this world now, right? Because people, as you said, Karen, people were just so focused on what they were used to, and that's at face to face. And it's the same experience. It's just a Caribbean thing to want to have that interaction, and we experience that at the Branson Center. But what I wanted to clarify in tips is, when we talk about pivoting, everyone has this perspective that it's a complete 180 where you're moving your business model, and it doesn't have to be that way. So talk from a strategic standpoint, look at it in steps. First thing, how are you pivoting your message first and foremost? You don't have to take your business and say, oh my God, this is not going to work because I have a product that I can no longer serve to the clients that I have. But are you tapping into their pain points that they have, but you're messaging it in a different way, So for example, I don't know if this is a point, I can use examples of what entrepreneurs have been doing in the region, but we have an entrepreneur that has a natural juice company that was, their messaging was, this healthy and, convenient way of getting it. Once COVID hit, the messaging shifted to immunity boosting, helping you fight, build your immunity so that COVID won't attack you, The messaging is what switched, and her sales went through the roof just because of that one pivot, the messaging. The second thing would be, looking at your audience. You may have lost audience now, but could you tap into someone else utilizing different channels, synergies, could you have a synergy with other organizations that have a different audience that you can tap into for the first point reason? Is there a different problem that you're solving now in the context of COVID, and could you get a new audience because of that? So going down the line again, thinking about, should you be augmenting your product, instead of changing completely? And one entrepreneur we had is a nail technician, does nails, beautiful nails, right? And that's a very much an in-person activity. Decided to offer that skill set. I think Karen mentioned it, taking that skill set she had, turning it into an e-course so that people could paint their nails the way that she does it at home. So she's teaching her skill set, right? That's completely innovative, utilizing the digital space to take her skill and create a new revenue line. So she augmented her product, right? Completely new revenue line. And the last thing, obviously, is pivoting your business. An example, I'm just looking at my notes because I want to remember, is that we had an entrepreneur who sold photography equipment and had great distribution with this photography equipment. When COVID happened, decided to jump on the sanitizer bandwagon. Why? Because he had a distribution channel that he could leverage, because he already had all of these businesses that were already buying products from him, completely switched his business model, went into the hand sanitizer and alcohol business, which may be short-lived, nevertheless was able to survive, right? He's surviving based on leveraging that skill or that asset, which was the distribution channel and the customers. So my advice after all of that is look at your strengths, look at your skill sets, look at your assets. How can you leverage that? You're solving a very similar product with the first three things I mentioned. Problem for your customer, it's just the how. How are you doing it now? So that would be my advice.
Awesome. All right, and Gavin, maybe you could shed some light on or give some advice, even in terms of the operations, right? Operations and finance, right? The reality is that business owners, some folks, it would have been as easy as shifting the message, and therefore that would have been pivot. So that's a very good example there, Lorian. But some folks, they had to actually completely change their model or change the operations behind the veneer of their site or what have you. Change their entire operations. Move from from in-house dining to curbside pickup, and many different options and opportunities. So maybe you could touch a little bit about that and dovetail into finance, because the reality is, with no sales coming in for some period, for SMEs, cash flow would have been an issue, right? A major issue. So maybe even thinking about how, financing and moving your business, covering in terms of cash flow, but also opportunity to scale. Muted. I think you muted there, Gavin. Yeah.
My apologies.
No worries.
Yeah, this is a time where a considerable amount of creativity and flexibility would be required. So some of the things Lorian described they are a very good example of that creativity and flexibility. This is also a time where cash and liquidity is king. So whatever you have, you need to conserve and you need to manage it well. So you need to strive for operational efficiency in this time. It is generally a sin to be in business and to be wasteful. But in times like these, it is almost inimical to a business existence. It is inimical to our business existence. So you need to conserve the resources you have. You need to be very, very prudent in how you spend. But I understand the need to shift product lines, to adopt new product lines, possibly even suspend product lines. But in making all those decisions, the long-term viability of your business must always be in focus. Because sometimes these short-term decisions might benefit you now, might bring in some liquidity, but in 2-3 years down the road, they destroy their business. So you need to always have the long view in terms of, okay, how is this decision going to affect my business 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And it is important to not panic as well. Panic would make people, businesses, for example, sell valuable assets just for liquidity, or probably sell whole product lines that could guarantee long-term riches just for liquidity now. So the long view is very important, right? I would also advise our businesses, you have to stand out from the crowd, even in this time. Even as you're trying to conserve resources or so, I must be always, in my mind at least as your customer, I must be always able to say why I am to buy, let's say, a pencil from you as opposed to buying a pencil from Karen. You must be able to stand out, find, as Lorian was saying, find your strength, find what it is in your business, what it is in your product, what it is in your service that differentiates you from your competitor. And we have to always be cognizant that our competitor is no longer our immediate person in the street, or the same person in the same country, or even the competitors in the region. I don't know. I know of very few business lines where the competitor is not global. The competitive space is always larger than we think most times. So we always have to be strategic. We always have to think long term. And just one more thing,
Sure.
you have to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you to boost liquidity if you need to. That may mean reaching out to the bank and advising the bank, hey, I'm experiencing some trouble now. How can you help me? The banks cannot help you if they do not know what you're going through. And in a similar fashion, governments, well, at least the government, that a few governments I know of are offering some liquidity support to small businesses. take advantage of those if you need it, but you need to apply early as well.
Yeah, no, I'm happy that you mentioned that, because especially as you stressed on liquidity, and I did see where the Minister of Finance, in Trinidad and Tobago, in the mid-year review, he spoke about the stimulus package, committing $300 million to this particular sector, the SMEs. But most times people, even beyond the stimulus package, they don't know how to access it. They see it, they hear it, they read about it in the papers, but it's like, well, all right, well, how do I now actually go about accessing that? And as you said, I mean, you just need to go into the branch and go into the commercial banks and ensure that you tell them your story. And of course, yes, the stimulus package is for specific purposes, salaries and raw materials and so on, to make sure that your businesses can continue. But it still is something that is valuable, particularly in this time when cash flow is important.
Yes. And as you say, in terms of accessing it, individuals who may not know how to access it, it's simple. For example, our customers who would like to access it, just visit our website. No need to come into the branch. True to the low-touch economy, we have focused in recent times on making a lot of our services more accessible online. So customers who are interested, they could visit our website and apply there, get some information there. And as you indicated, it is for specific businesses and specific purposes. So, for example, it is focused on businesses with annual revenue streams of $1 million to $20 million. And such businesses must have at least 5 employees or so. All the criteria would be available on the website. For the ones who like high touch, even though I don't recommend it, yes, as you said, you could come into the branch.
Yeah, but of course, yes, we're talking low touch. So
yes, exactly.
You can go on the website, you can apply there, you can do everything online.
Yeah.
And I do want to just touch on the tools and technology, because we're talking low touch, and Lorianne spoke about marketing and many different tools and platforms that allow you to communicate with your audience. What I do want to, and I'm probably bringing Karen here, to just touch on some of the technology that exists. One of the things that you mentioned is that this technology existed before. The reality is we were already in the 4th Industrial Revolution, right? The World Economic Forum in 2015 identified that we were moving into the 4th Industrial Revolution. So we were already living in a world where there was, a merging of digital, biotechnology, artificial intelligence, and a range of other platforms that was taking us to a different level in terms of technology, right? COVID-19 just happened to be the catalyst to usher some folks into this space. But what are some of the tools that already exist right now, the digital assets that already exist, that SMEs on this call and those who tune in can use right now to get their business online and continue to do business with their customers?
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of the most important things that businesses should be utilizing, and whether it's their business decisions or whether it's creating content or trying to do lead generation, is understanding all of the data tools that are available to them right now that will allow them to understand their audience before they just start to do things within their business. So what am I talking about? One of my favorite tools, and I say this all the time, there's a tool that I use almost every day called Google Trends. Google Trends allows me to see all of the search engine data from all over the world, and it breaks it down by country, breaks it down by city. And how I use that tool is by putting in either a service I want to offer, a product I want to offer, anything that I want data on. I would go into that tool, put in the country I want to specify, put in the duration, put in the keyword, and it gives me data on if that country is even searching for it. So rather than me just say, you know what, now is a good time to start selling phones. Yet I have no idea what phone people want. I don't even know if the phone industry is viable right now. I could go into a tool like that and see exactly what the data says about if people are searching for it online. That will allow me to start making better business decisions. And if I want to create content, it will allow me to start seeing exactly what type of content I can create, because it's going to show me who in the country is looking for it, breaking it down by city. But then also it's going to give me related topics that Google suggests based on their algorithms. And it's also going to show me exactly what people are typing in Google. What are some of the other queries that they're using? So businesses, and that's just one tool, there's so many others. Businesses need to start using data now to start making those business decisions, right? The next thing is, with respect to tools, you need to be e-commerce ready. And there's three keys to e-commerce. And I don't want to complicate it, so I kind of break it down to these three things. You as a business owner need to ensure, and you need to be educating people on how to do business with you. And one of the key things that people need to do business with you is having a payment mechanism to pay you online. So people think that I might be talking about Visa debit cards just because I want to talk about Visa debit cards. No, I started teaching people how to do business with me because my business, Droid Island, is an online business. And I want people that are interested in working with me, I want them to have everything in place so that they can go and do business on my website and not actually have to speak to me to do business. That way I can focus on creating content, educating you, and by that you start to build a relationship with me, you trust me, you follow me, and then it's not a question of, is this person credible enough for me to go and purchase on their website? It's no, that's Mr. Droid, that's Droid Island right there, love all of his content, I have a Visa debit card, I'm gonna jump on his website, make the purchase, and he's good, I'm seeing him all over the place, he's credible, right? So the payment mechanisms, I teach on it and I educate my audience on it, because if you are the business and you start to educate your audience on how to do online business with you or use some of the other digital services that are available beyond just a Visa debit credit card, your audience is going to fall into those channels, right? But you have to be the one to educate them. Second thing is understanding payment processes. Again, I never set out to be an online business coach. I am an entrepreneur. I actually have a business. So I needed to learn, how do I get paid online? What are all the payment mechanisms to allow me to get paid online? Once I understood all of that and I implemented it into my business, people started to just reach out. I get more questions about how to do things in my business than my actual business, right? So that is what allowed me to start teaching people on how to do online business, because when people see, hey, you're using a particular service for payment processing, why? How does it work? Can you show me? Well, that's a business opportunity in itself, which I've taken advantage of, right? The third most important thing for e-commerce is your business being e-commerce ready. Start looking at, beyond the physical product. So I used to have a physical brick and mortar store. I spent over $100,000 getting the store, furnishing it, stocking the shelves. It was the greatest waste of money I ever had, because I put all that money out, right? And I only kept the store for 6 months because I was blogging and doing videos and I was creating content. And companies started to reach out to me to work with me on my intellectual property and creating content. And when I started to monetize my own IP, well, I have almost 100% markup on my intellectual property. So do I continue selling a physical product where your markup is 10, 20, 30%, whatever your markup is? Or do I go head on into creating content where my margins are now almost all profit because it's my intellectual property, right? The minute I started to work with companies and making that transition, I closed the brick and mortar store. I chalked up as a loss, sure, but it allowed me to learn how to do e-commerce. And the more I started to create content and working with companies, is the more trust I started to build in the community, is the more people felt more comfortable going online and doing business with me online. So if my business wasn't e-commerce ready, let's just say I just closed the store down, Droid Island was just a blog website, you couldn't do anything else but read my blogs, then I would not have had that channel for people to still do business with me if you wanted to purchase smartphones. So when I learned how to make my platform e-commerce ready, I can now not only make money with content creation, but creating more content, building more trust in the community leads more traffic back to my website, which is another channel for revenue generation. So if you can start to think about digitizing aspects of your business, right? There's so many different ways to make money through a digital means than people realize. You can make revenue with creating content. Whether you want to actually create a e-commerce website and switch to a drop shipping model. So I no longer even stock products. I drop ship. So when an order comes in, I then bring in the product from the supplier and have it delivered to the customer. So now I don't have rent. I don't have a brick and mortar. I don't have rent. I don't pay for products. I actually get paid all of my profit up front because I don't stock anything, right? Mm-hmm. So you create content, you're monetizing, you're doing drop shipping, and you could drop ship any product and make your money up front. You could do affiliate marketing where you don't even have to touch the product. You're just promoting the products for other business and services and making commissions. That's another revenue stream. You could turn around and sell ebooks as a digital product. You could turn around and do e-courses in your business. Those are all different revenue streams. And now that I employ, a variety of these tools and systems to execute these different revenue streams, I'm no longer handicapped on just one income. So when COVID happened, sure, I couldn't do the physical in-person workshops, but then that transitioned into me doing the online workshops, which then transitioned me to having an actual online show that you can learn how to do different types of businesses online. So the goal now is to start understanding the digital space. Every single business can take advantage of the digital age and different ways to make money. It doesn't matter what your business is. There are options. You just need to either speak to someone who understands it, or you take some time to consider what can we digitize, what can we turn into a digital product, and then begin to implement. So having your website, being e-commerce ready, using data to make your business decisions and understand what your audience wants is going to go a long way in you conquering the digital age.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And the reality is that we're trying to jam a lot of content and information in this short time period for you, because each one of these areas could very well be its own webinar, right? So but we are trying to ensure that we cover a lot of ground for you as the SMEs. We have a lot of questions coming in, so I do want to start getting some of the questions to the panelists and have you answer those. And I encourage the participants to continue to drop your questions in the Q&A section. This one is for Mr. Sobian. How do you create demand for a product that doesn't exist yet? They're an aspiring film production company, and they wish to create a niche and demand for quality local theater. Thank you, Dapan, for that question.
That's amazing, though, because in terms of my trying to adapt the experience or the experiences that I provide and I create, theater is one of them. So it's not just events for me, or it's not just mass. I could look at a number of things, including theater, whereby I can use Caribbean culture and fuse it with theater. So for me, it's how you improvise. It's how you uniquely find fusions, or you are able to reinvent. It's almost like saying we used to have Kaiso tents long ago, but you could bring it back in a reinventive format. So it's the same thing with theater. Theater is an experience. How do you curate a new and innovative theater experience? So for me, that's how you adapt and you think in terms of this new environment. And it's so funny because I am a curator of experiences and I am thinking about doing theater. It's the same way I would think about creating going into film, a drive-in movie concept. You know, these things are all part and parcel of entertainment and creating experiences. So for anybody out there who's trying to create a unique experience, it's just about innovation and reinvention.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that. I saw a couple of days ago the Prime Minister of Canada talking about Caribana this year being a virtual experience, a virtual carnival, right? And you know, people are like, well, how do you actually do carnival virtually? Like, you know, but again, if you have to reimagine something that has been the status quo for decades, that's the time. Now is the time that we're calling upon major stakeholders to do that. Challenge yourself, try a different experience, find ways to do that.
And definitely, I would always say technology plays a part. New content creation and new content development plays a part because it's all about revenue generation and longevity. Yes, you may want to formulate new ways to deal with this world of tomorrow, but at the same point in time, in terms of succession planning, you also want to also strategize about returning to normalcy, because that's the way I have to think. I have to think that maybe a vaccine will be formed. And in a sense, I have to strategize, okay, maybe in the meantime, I'll have to explore different experiences. Maybe it is that I will have to explore how it is that social distancing is going to take place for experiences. But at the same time, that doesn't stop me from strategizing and exploring virtual experiences or virtual worlds of experience. So in a sense, it's kind of like you can't put all your rabbits in one hat. You have to be able to kind of feel out what it is. So for me, it's like 3 strategies in one, because I want to be able to have maybe the main thing for me is experiences, but I may be the master of virtual experiences and I may be the master of live experiences as well.
Yes. Okay, awesome. So we have another question coming in. This one will be for you, Gavin, representing the financial institution, Republic Bank. How are financial institutions assisting SMEs with online payments, accounts, especially those that, you know, have 1 or 2 employees and you know, net profits that are less than, let's say, $100,000, but small businesses that are really just seeking to get online. I know that there's a solution that was recently launched, so you could probably touch on that.
I can speak for us. We have an online solution, ePay, which is an e-commerce solution that allows businesses of all sizes to be able to sell products and receive payments for those products online. The package is not fixed. It is completely customizable. So it really, the ePay package could be for large companies or to small companies, but even without websites. So, of course, the cost of paying for the service will vary according to the package that the company selects, and is I can assure you is priced competitively, right? So that has been our latest offering in terms of providing e-commerce for businesses. I know the person asks generally what banks are doing, but I can only speak for one at this time.
Sure. That's fair. Yeah. And of course, if you want to go, you can go to .com/epay. It's in the chat. You get all the links there, and you can go directly to the landing page, get all the information, and even send an email. We'll drop the email address in the chat. So send an email off. You'll get a download on the services, as well as somebody will walk you through how you set it up for your account, how you utilize these services and features, etc. So don't worry, we got you. But this is something significant because it particularly addresses what the attendee was asking. The smaller businesses. How do you now facilitate online payments for these businesses? So I think it's critical that we touch on it. So thank you.
Yeah.
All right. We do have a couple more questions. We have a question for Karen, coming back to some of the digital. Yeah. So what do you need to do to start putting things in place to digitize your business? I know you touched on some of the points, but maybe you can just summarize really quickly. What are the key steps that you need to really digitize your business and get it online?
I think one of the most important things is getting paid online. So if you can start looking at going beyond cash, whether it's you're using your website, you have a payment processor, there are other services that allow customers to visit locations, deposit the money, that money gets deposited to you, educating your customers on, I don't even personally, I try to even show my customers how to use online banking. Like I don't even, wait for anybody else to do it. I will send a video of how to register, pay and do an online bank transfer, because at the end of the day, I want you to pay me and I don't want you to wait for anybody else to create that content, right? So getting paid is huge. Also, digital marketing. Start looking at creating content that will allow you to put yourself as the thought leader in your space, so that when people view you as the thought leader, you start to generate those opportunities on your platforms. And if you think of it like this, right? If you build your digital home, so your digital home could be a website, you could then use social media as breadcrumbs to come back to your platform, where you can now control the conversation. You can now get people to come onto your email list, your notification list, your text list, where you can now do more direct marketing to them. And you don't always have to spend money to boost on a social media platform to get your messaging out there, because social media right now is pay to play. If you're not spending your money to market your products, social media is only sharing your information to about 0.4% of whoever subscribes to your audience. That's extremely low. So start thinking digital marketing, start thinking about creating content. So content could be in the form of a blog, it could be in the form of a YouTube channel or videos. It could also be a podcast. Whatever your industry is, I really encourage everybody to go the route of education. Whatever your industry is. If you're a mechanic, start teaching people how to change their oil or how to do things in their car, whatever the industry is, because the more people view you as the thought leader, is the easier it is to build trust with you in the digital age. And trust and believe that even though you teach people, people pay you more for you to help them either hold their hand through the process of doing exactly what you might have just showed them in a video, or they will still come to you and pay you double for you to actually do it for them. So your digital marketing is something key to digitize, and also getting paid. Most important, digitize that.
Oh, that's good. And so before we get into, because I'm mindful of the time, but before we get into like the round of closing remarks and the key checklists and success factors that each panelist will share with our audience, Loriana, you work with entrepreneurs throughout the region. You work with SMEs throughout the region. And, this, yes, is a difficult time, but, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I just want to make sure that we kind of inject some positivity into the mix for our SMEs to know that, look, you can take the necessary steps. Even if you have to pivot, pivoting is not a bad thing, and you have to turn away from what you might have been doing, but making necessary steps to not just survive, but thrive in this post-COVID-19 period. Any thoughts on?
Yeah, absolutely. And Yeah, and I saw a comment in the chat. Someone said, "I want to be an entrepreneur. How do I do that?" I think I think it's a fantastic question, because you know what? We are now, as you say, we need to thrive, not just survive. And going back to my original statement that, we can pivot, we can move. It's almost like you're starting the foundation again, which is not a bad thing. We're innovating, but I just want to remind everybody about, going back to your basics, your lean methodologies of looking at what can I put out there, as Karen said, creating content, becoming a thought leader, but also taking it another step where you're pre-selling, going back to the question that was, positioned to Jules, but doing it in a way that you're testing the market. You don't have to create and then sell, right? What's going on here now is progress over perfection. So when you get back to your lean methodology, you talk about your minimum viable product. What can you conceive that you can put out there, test the market, get outside the walls of your building, of your home, and I mean that in a digital context. And how can you really test to see if people want that? And that's through creating the content that Karen is talking about, but also from a perspective of not just starting as an entrepreneur, but as an entrepreneur who has a business, looking at first your finances. Where are you now? And where do you need to go from a financial perspective? Then looking at your strategy in terms of scenario planning, what do you need to do? What's the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario? And how your business, what are the triggers for your business as we progress through COVID? And then finally, the digital marketing aspect of it. So I think those big three buckets of finance, strategy, and marketing are going to be very important. Give yourself grace during this period and test the market.
Yeah, no, I think that's some good advice. I know, as I mentioned, the Branson Center is focused on the whole entrepreneur, right? And of course, you're a wellness advocate as well. So it's also very important as an entrepreneur for you to see about yourself.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for bringing that up. Yes, absolutely. I'm a big advocate for that, because I believe in this day and age where, as entrepreneurs, which most people are, if you have a 9-to-5, you usually have some, other interests that could be bringing in some income. It's a very stressful time right now. And if we as entrepreneurs, as business leaders, don't look after ourselves, we cannot be effective in our roles. And so for me, making sure that your well-being is a priority as you go through COVID, as we go through pivoting our businesses, it's essential. Science doesn't even have to tell us. We're looking at some of the most effective leaders around the world, some of the most successful people, and self-care is one of their number one priorities. And so I encourage and I beseech you all, don't forget about yourselves. You're going to be a better decision maker at the end of the period if you are looking after yourself. You're going to be a better leader for your team. You're going to have clarity of mind, and you'll be able to take action on all of these brilliant ideas and innovation that you're going to have once you put yourself first.
Awesome. And I guess I'll stay with you, Lorian, just in terms of closing remarks. That checklist. I mean, I know you may have covered some of them just now, but just final thoughts on what is that checklist for the entrepreneurs to succeed in this new low-touch economy. We want to leave our listeners, they've been getting pearls of wisdom from all of you guys throughout, but we really want to leave them with some a key checklist, if you will, that they should be writing down to really succeed in this low-touch economy.
Yeah, I think I'm going to touch back on the big three areas, which, is, do you have capital? It doesn't have to be a large amount, but again, looking back at your finances, ensure that you have capital. These are the three things that you need to succeed and be profitable. Capital, a team. We cannot underestimate the power of having a team. And a team doesn't mean that you have to have full-time people, but at least have other people supporting you in this business. Whether it's going to be, people, on Fiverr or outsourcing, having a team is important. And the third, your expertise, ensuring that you have a niche and you know how to do what you need to do. Those three things, if you have that, you're going to do fine.
Awesome. Thank you. Garvin, your checklist for our listeners.
Well, I think I want to touch on some of the things I spoke to before. I would like to put do not panic at the top of that list. Simply because panic induces some terrible decisions, and panic and prudence cannot coexist. Right. Secondly, I'd want to ask people, especially in these times, to strive for operational efficiency, cut out the waste as far as possible. But you have to be careful, though, what you categorize as waste. Things like marketing and research, those things are not wasteful. They don't generate immediate revenue, but they are important. So you have to be careful when you're doing that. Also, focus on standing out from the crowd. That is important for any business. If I could get, for example, as Jules was saying, he sells experience, so he knows he has to stand out from the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when people sell a physical product, they don't think they have to stand out from the crowd, but the service accompanying that product is extremely important.
Well said.
And I will just end with one more. Be flexible and creative. Forget everything that worked in the past. In fact, let me rephrase that. Reevaluate everything that worked in the past.
Yeah.
And look at it very carefully. We're in a completely new environment now. And you will have to dig deep into your imagination to survive this year and beyond. I'll end there.
Awesome. Thank you. Jules.
I have four points that I have implemented for myself. The first point is really assess the impact, but I think I rather don't panic, according to Gavin. I rather don't panic, but assess the impact, because ideally for me, you have to understand what your product is, right? And when I say assess the impact, means that you spend a lot more time now assessing your product, assessing your brand, assessing how it reaches your audience. It assesses everything. So it gives you time to implement, reinvent, innovate. And that's what I mean by assessing the impact. You have to know where you are or where you currently stand first before you know where you can go. So use the time to take a deep, insightful look at all of the ways in which your business has felt the effect of the low-touch economy to date. Try to understand if the impact has had on your supply chain, your industry, etc. So basically, if I am a curator of experiences, I have to define this impact and now devise a plan to move forward. Step 2 is to develop a strategy, and this is where you need your team. As Lorianne would have said, your team is very important. So this is where scenario planning will come into play. It is important for me to create strategies based on the different scenarios. Yes, I can wait for a vaccine to be found, which may bring some normalcy to my usual sphere of business, but the world has changed. So I need to strategize for this new world. So believe you me, developing a strategy is very important. And 3, go on the offense. It's only so long that you can play defense. You'll never win the game by playing defense alone, right? So you have to develop your strategy and take it to the world. I realize there's a lot of pressure to mitigate current risks, but the reason for planning and strategy is for you to be strategic and to move ahead. And what is really important about this is that I believe this is the new era where everyone is exploring the new world. So now is the time for creators and entrepreneurs to approach businesses and corporate partners with new ideas and initiatives and take it to them, instead of waiting for them now to come to us. Those days are gone. Yep. And last but not least, make it happen. Make it happen. Take advantage of the new world order by questioning all of the previous business norms. The rules have changed. Now is the time to become a pioneer, a catalyst, a game changer in this new world. As I said previously, I do not believe these strategies are just for your own benefit. I would like innovation, reinvention, and adaptation to apply for the entire industry itself so that the ecosystem can also benefit from this new wave of thinking.
Yeah, I like the fact that you slipped in, make it happen on a Republic Bank platform. You know, make it happen. Loan from Republic.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic and really good advice, folks. You're literally getting it from 4 practitioners in this space. These folks have all lived this and they're sharing it with you today. Karen, your checklist.
All right. So first things first, build your digital home. And one of the most important reasons to build your digital home is social media is rented land. A glitch can happen and you don't want your entire presence to be gone. But most importantly, you cannot do e-commerce on social media in the Caribbean. All of the ways to do e-commerce that you read about when you Google, those are all coming from American markets. We do not have the tools for e-commerce on social media. So you need to use social media to drive that traffic back to your website where e-commerce can actually happen. So that's huge. Second, create content that establishes yourself as an industry leader. Listen, you having a TV ad or radio ad isn't going to get the job done anymore. We ain't building trust like that. Any ad we see, we try to click through as fast as possible. What we want to see who is behind the brand. We want to know what you are about. We want you to teach us, and in you teaching us, we will build that trust and want to do more business with you. Next, be e-commerce ready. Start thinking e-commerce, and e-commerce strategies. If your business isn't e-commerce ready, you're not going to survive in the digital space, flat out. Use data to fuel your decisions. I gave an example of one tool. There are a ton of tools that give us access to search engine data that break down what everybody is looking for online. So you can get a pulse check of what everybody wants from all over the globe. It's amazing how much information we have access to for free. It's actually kind of scary. Next, think digital. Start looking at your business. Start thinking about what sort of digital products that you can make within your business that you can sell. The beauty with digital products is you make it once and you could sell infinitely. All right. There's no logistics. I don't have to worry about, how that product is going to get to that person. Once you create it, once it's on your website or a platform that allows for digital product delivery, they will take care of all the sales and delivery to that business. Also, I implore everybody, start looking at what skills you have, and you could turn those into courses or content. So if maybe times are rough, maybe you might have lost your job and you can cook and you were thinking about getting into the restaurant business, but you don't have the cash flow to make that business happen, start teaching how to cook online. If you can make the best pilau, I want to know how to make pilau. I can't make a coleslaw. I will pay. I will gladly take your classes. If you are a baker and you drink wine and that's your thing and it allows for de-stress after work, I want to bake and drink wine with you after work, I will pay for those type of classes, right? And do it from the comfort of my home. So every skill you have, you can turn into a course and a digital product. Keep that in mind. Yeah. And last but not least, think local, but build global. We are unique in the Caribbean. What I see so many people doing is people are creating content or creating a business, but everything is to try to have an American feel. When we forget that the Caribbean people are the trendsetters, right? I don't even know about a fete from, so I was raised in Canada. I don't even know about a party or fete from Toronto that comes to the Caribbean and tours. Yet Caesar's Army is cruising the globe and bringing that experience and exporting that Caribbean culture. If you think about what we have locally, you can export that globally. For me, I am always thinking about Caribbean entrepreneurs. Even though I didn't grow up here, I had to learn everything as I came. And in doing that, I realized, wait a minute, a lot of this information is not out in the public space. So the more I teach and give the point of view from the Caribbean entrepreneur, not only does my community appreciate and I've built that following, but people on the outside of the Caribbean look and say, hey, how were you able to build within the Caribbean? Because your focus is Caribbean, we want your perspective. They don't just want, something that appeals to their market. They have a million experts. So start thinking local, have that local focus, but have that global reach. And the digital age allows you to do that.
That's awesome. Awesome. So at this point, I do want to thank my panelists today. All of this information and content that you guys have shared with our attendees. It's been very useful. I'm seeing a lot of the comments. People are like, yes, very insightful, good information. I do want to thank all of you, Lorianne, Gavin, Jules, Karen, for taking the time to share your story and your insights and knowledge with us today. And at this point, I will say for participants here, as well as those that may log on afterwards on demand, you can check all of the content. You can log on to republicbanksmetoolkit.com, and you can get not only this webinar, but the previous webinar, and lots of questions can be answered, that you may have, especially those who have asked about e-commerce, etc., and setting up on the website for Republic Bank. There was some that was touched on the previous webinar. So once again, thank you everyone for participating and truly appreciate it. We look forward to connecting with you again sometime in the future with more content. What I would leave you with though, and it more or less is a common thread throughout all of the presentation. I mean, my teacher, you may not be able to see it, but as an entrepreneur, I believe in it. Like really, the only way to predict the future is to invent it.
True.
Yeah. So on that note, thank you very much.
Well
See
said.
you.
Okay.
Blessings.
Okay.
Blessings, my comrades.
Uh,
I was